Hi, I'm Kenny Klaus, and this is State 48 Homeowner.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the State 48 Homeowner Podcast. And today we're going to be talking about the 5 things that a lot of people don't think of as their parents are getting older. And we've got some great guests today, and you guys happen to share a last name.
We do.
Rich and Dawn Milburn. And Rich and Dawn lead our Klaus Team Silver program. And what is Klaus Team Silver?
Klaus Team Silver program is like a concierge service for those in transition. So whether it's a senior themselves or a family that is trying to navigate a situation where the senior is going from fully independent care or independent living into a need for some assistance. Yeah.
And what's really cool is you guys have quite a bit of experience on this. For one, you guys live in a 55 plus community.
Correct.
And so you are around folks that are older than you.
Mm-hmm.
And you, Dawn, were the executive director of a senior living community.
That's correct.
And
yes.
We'll get into it in a little bit, but you guys have also provided care to your parents.
That is correct.
And so well-rounded experience and knowing exactly what people deal with, and you've seen it from clients, you've seen it in yourself and lessons that you guys have learned. And I know that there's a lot of people, and for myself, my parents are in their 70s. They are pretty healthy, they live by themselves, but I know that down the road things might be a little bit different. I like to think, hey, my family has longevity on its side, and so as a normal American kid of who has senior parents, I'm going to push that off as long as I can, because I don't want to think about it. It's something that we don't like to think about. But I want to look today and go, okay, what are the 5 things that people in my situation and people whose parents are maybe a little bit further along in that process, what are things that we may not have thought of or maybe don't think about?
Well, it's interesting that you started out in discussing that you're putting off thinking about these things.
Yeah.
Because the very first thing is the timing. Obviously, the best timing is to have that conversation far in advance. Mm-hmm. Working in the senior living field, I saw time and time again families coming in at the moment of crisis.
Yeah.
The right time is not when mom and dad has fallen, when dad has decided to get in the car and drive cross country to see relatives that are no longer here. Mm-hmm. Those are crisis moments, and when you make decisions in haste, you don't make the best decisions. So truly the best time is before any of those things occur. For me personally, my mother and I actually had the conversation. She was very resistant, but we did come to an agreement that when certain things came to fruition, we would have to look at assisted living. Rich wasn't as fortunate, and his did not go so well.
I came home and basically found my dad, and we lived not in the same house, and found him basically 75 pounds of water weight from congestive heart failure, lying in his chair, basically on his deathbed after going through a heart attack and a couple of years prior. And I keyed on the same thing that Don just brought up about you saying you're pushing it off as far as possible. And it's not always a mental decline that you're dealing with, but something that happens out of nowhere, a slip and a fall. And all of a sudden somebody has broken a hip. Well, what keeps seniors, at least in general, I'm not a doctor, healthy and going is activity.
Yeah.
Breaks a hip, and now you're laid up in bed for a couple of months, and all of a sudden the lungs aren't functioning, the muscles deteriorate, and and the same watching with my dad is he was not somebody who worked out, severe diabetic, and I could see his decline. And trying to have those conversations, it came down to a head with a medical incident where tubes and stuff coming out of his heart, and the doctor saying, okay, we're going to release him, and on a daily basis you need to be able to clean these tubes and I said, whoa, I can't do that. And plus, I do have to work to survive. And it came down to where I had to make the decision. He's not coming home. And it was the hardest thing I ever had to do. But like in a parent who's had that unknown, I'll use because you brought it up as a scenario, I'll use you that if your mom or dad falls and breaks that hip or breaks an arm, whatever, okay, maybe they are able to come home, but how's your dad or mom going to take care of the other? Or they have to go to a rehab center who's now saying now they probably need to go to assisted. You can't just walk in and say, here I am, like you're checking into a hotel. And there's things that need to be in place that Dawn's going to start covering here that'll make your life, and having open conversation with siblings. So when the person who's seeing the decline or the incident can convey it properly, so so people who don't see it every day don't get it handled.
And so that first thing that we need to think on is how soon is it going to be? And I think the answer is, we just don't know. And it's conversations that we have to have. Now, I will tell you, it was probably 15, 20 years ago when it just felt like every time, so my parents live in a different state, every time I talked to them, they were talking about, their trust, where they're, the combination to their safe, they've taken care of crematoriums and things like that. And it's like, we don't have to talk about it every time, but we want to make sure we're having those conversations. What do they want? What places are they aware of that they're comfortable with? Which, my parents had to take care of or help their parents find care. And so they're aware of a lot of facilities in the town that they're in, and they have opinions about different ones. I want to make sure I know those.
Right.
The Klaus Team is different. With the Klaus Team, you have someone on your side. Where you live and make memories is important. We have more unique strategies than anyone else to help you accomplish what matters most to you. We can help you with traditional real estate as well as other options such as our lease purchase programs. We can help you buy first then sell, and we can bring you instant offers. We're here to help our neighbors achieve the American dream and help them build wealth through home ownership. For more info or to start your home search, visit us online at klausteam.com.
Right. And that leads into the next point being that who is going to be the person that takes that lead?
Yeah.
It's great when parents have those pieces in place. They have their power of attorney set because then you know where it falls. You also tend to have one family member that seems to be the go-to. That's the general scenario. I was fortunate and my brother was very supportive in the decision making, but it can cause a lot of strife and people need to be aware of that.
We were fortunate when my mom passed, but because and I know we talk about wills and trusts, she had everything mapped out to the letter. So even when it came time for the doctors to come to me, because I was the power of attorney, to say quality of life and do we take off life support, my mom had it documented at this point in time, this many days. Yeah. She made that decision for me, which for the rest of my life, I knew I did what she wanted or it was done the way she had planned it. You don't have that second guessing.
No, and one of the best gifts a parent can give their children is creating a trust. Sitting down with an attorney that will just map out not only that trust, but also, what do we want to have done with our medical? What do we want to have done with end of life and those kinds of things? And to take the step like my parents did, and even arrange for cremation or burial and those kinds of things, because then your kids aren't arguing about it.
Exactly.
You've already dictated exactly what you want to have happen. And, I learned from my parents. It's a gift I've already made for my children.
We did the same exact thing. After we lost both parents, we realized just how important that was and made sure we had everything in order for our kids. Absolutely.
So how do you see it happen when there's maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 kids? How do you see it happening when you decide who's going to take the lead?
Well, it certainly simplifies the process because you have generally a power of attorney that is in charge of health, and mental health as well. And then you have a power of attorney that takes care of the financial end of it. And so when I was in the senior living field, we would always have to refer to those that are making the health decisions for the move, but then of course those that are going to have to take care of the monthly the bills. Yeah. And so it definitely streamlined the process by knowing who we're supposed to speak to, who we can legally speak to, in getting the things accomplished that mom and dad need. There is nothing more heartbreaking than, and this is where I may choke up, than to have a family come in with a parent that has declined cognitively, and nothing has been set in place. And family starts to argue about what's best because they can't rely on any input from the parent.
Yeah.
And so
everybody's got their own opinion.
Everybody has their own opinion, and then what happens is they have to find an attorney who can step in and get legal guardianship. And it's rough. It's a rough road. I would advise to any family, please make sure those things are in place before those things happen.
I can tell you we had several conversations, and we never talked names, of course, but when she would come home and it would be that situation, and then you have part of the family that's destitute for money, and the money side of arguing because they don't want to pay for the care gets into it. It just gets horrible, and it's almost like the declined parent is forgotten about over personal gain.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, this is Kenny Klaus with Klaus Team Real Estate Solutions. We know there's a lot of confusion in today's market, whether it's billboards, TV, radio, mail. Everyone's trying to get your attention. They offer one lane, where at the Klaus Team we have over 20 different programs. We can help you navigate through to find out what's best for you. And remember, we work for you, they work for themselves. We're here to represent you and make sure you have the best experience possible.
Visit us at klausteam.com/call us first.
So as things progress, what are the different care options that people will need to consider at some point?
Well, I'm going to speak from experience here in that most families look for their care options after a fall or an illness has precipitated the whole situation. So it depends. And that's why you really need some guidance. You really need someone that has experience that can step in and say, okay, there's some cognitive decline. Doctor is recommending that they move into memory care. Here are the options of the communities, or perhaps a group home might be the better situation. That's where you really need someone to step in and help and say, okay, in this particular situation, I think the group home will be of more benefit, or I think the activities in a larger community are going to be a benefit.
And having the parents' input on that, I think, is key before there's cognitive decline. I was a pastor for years. We had a lot of seniors, and there was a lot of people. Some of them were in a group home. Some of them were in a very social senior care community. Others in more of a convalescent home feel. But you'd find that so often it didn't just only match with their medical needs and care needs, but more so with their personalities.
Exactly.
And where they would be the most happy. And some it was just, I remember one, it was he was in he was bedridden at that point, in a group home in a room that had a view of a garden. And it was key. He could talk to people, he could interact, he couldn't get up and go, but he could look at the garden.
But this is where the planning
because he liked gardening, and that's why.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this is also where the planning comes in, because most communities, especially here in the East Valley, Phoenix Metro, they're full. Because you just can't walk in and expect to have a room for them. You have to start planning and talking and getting things in place.
Yeah.
Which is right. When you have an urgent situation, you're forced to take something that's available versus maybe the best thing for that individual. So it's important in the timing, and then knowing your caring options. Perhaps staying in their home and having care come in is going to be the best option for a while. It depends on how many hours they're going to be there. you need somebody that knows these things, because you may say, oh, it's, $23-25 an hour. Well, okay, but mom needs 24-hour care. That's really not going to be your best financial option, and it's really probably not the best option for her. If we're talking about someone that just needs some assistance with getting meals or doing some cleaning, then it very well could be the best option. So there's so many scenarios and so many things to consider that you really do need somebody who knows senior living very well and can understand what is going to fit that situation best.
Yeah, my grandfather, he passed away with Alzheimer's. He was a officer in the Air Force, and he ended up finding Air Force Village West out in California. It was a place where he could buy a home, and it was all set up from day one. That then, as things would progress and he would get older, he would transition from that home into a condo, transition from there into more observed care, and then finally into assisted living and heavy care. And it was a really nice gift for his kids.
Yes.
That it was already set in place and move along. So there's just a lot of different care options.
There's so many, and I think I just wanted to jump back on one thing in that we talked about resistance to talking about it ahead of time. That's because so many people have this preconceived idea that assisted living communities are like the old school nursing homes. You notice before the podcast I had mentioned that we cannot call them facilities because it's so it's not even part of that language anymore. They are more like a cruise ship these days. Yeah. And so a lot of the reluctance to speak about it is because, well, you promised never to put me in a home, or I don't want to go to a nursing home. But what they're not realizing is that this population is growing, and people understand that and are building facilities. I just said the word, they're building communities versus facilities that are a step above the last one. So there are some very nice options out there.
I have a friend, and she sold her home quite a while ago, has been in this place in Iowa for quite a while, and you go into her home and it feels like a standalone home, and yet it's in a very large building. As you come up, it kind of feels more like an apartment complex as you go in. Regular door. It's not something like you'd expect in a quote-unquote convalescent home. Yeah. And she can live life, and yet she can go out and have a meal with her friends there in the dining hall.
Let me touch on that because I know time is always an issue. I mean, you used to hear the term God's waiting room. It's not that. But what the communities are designed to do, and where families, and this is where when Dawn was, the marketing director and executive director dealing with, families that come in and want this big, spacious room for mom or dad or together to relax and all that. Communities aren't really designed for that. They'll have nice rooms, but it's designed for them to stay engaged, come out and not have their meals necessarily in the room. It's an option, but go out into the community and to be talking and to be living and to be doing things with the community. It's not just a closet. Yeah, it's changed so much.
And like you said, the more active we are, the better we're going to be.
Absolutely. Keep staying engaged is key. So if you're looking at a place and you think, well, this apartment's certainly not big enough for them, they're used to a 3,500 square foot home, you have to think of the community itself as their entire home, because we want to encourage them. There's a method to it.
So number four. How are we going to pay for care?
How are we going to pay for it? Okay, it's expensive. A lot of families are not aware of some of the options available. Certainly talking points ahead of time. Again, one, do mom or dad qualify for veteran benefits? You've got your aid and attendance. So you certainly want somebody that knows about that and can help them apply and get those benefits. You have Altex, the state funding. Mom and dad live strictly on Social Security. If so, let's find some communities that accept Altex. Then you have maybe a home sale. Maybe they have equity in a home. The home needs to be sold. Okay, so you need to find somebody that can assist with that. Maybe they're going to move into one of these next-gen homes with family and have some in-home care. So you need a little guidance there. And then also we have family contribution. How much is everybody going to pitch in? How much can they pitch in?
Well, you also were telling me a lot that the generation is now into that. There was really good deals back in the day on long-term health or insurance. There's a lot of people and families don't know it. And I've heard the conversations in our neighborhood, yeah, I have that, but I don't want to have to use it. You've been paying
Why
for
do you
it.
have it if you don't want to use it? Yeah.
That's the mindset.
That's the mindset.
I'll use that when I really, really need it. It's like, okay, Agnes, you're 91, and I think it's time to get your money's worth, right?
There's options there. And also, you told me several times that when people would come in to see the pricing, depending on what their care, because there is an assessment for that individual to move into a community, they find, well, by the time, if I take my normal expenses of the house, my property taxes, my groceries, and all that kind of stuff, the difference wasn't as big as people think.
Right.
And then it does change with care needs, but there is stuff there to get people into the care they need. They may not be able to always go into the beautiful super places, but there's still going to be quality care. And it's not the mothball smelling God's waiting room that we saw as kids. You know, there's,
Right.
I mean, and I know when we get into the memory care, and I'm going to back this up a little bit, I see so many people, and I was one of them. I was a caregiver at the house, trying to live my life to somebody who was semi-self-sufficient, and I would never know what I came home to. And the taxation on your own physical being as the caregiver, mental, and coming home to find the loved one on the floor who's been there for 3 hours, or unfortunately had a bathroom incident, whatever. You can't live a life that way, and I don't think your parent would really want you to have to live that way.
I think that brings us to our fifth
Exactly.
question:
Yes.
is how will I know when I can't care for mom or dad anymore?
I think the clearest indicator is your care the best you can offer your parent? Because if it's out of your realm, if you're not comfortable helping a parent toilet or shower, it's time. If you are finding yourself exhausted, drinking too much, it happens. It's very taxing. And sadly, what I've seen over and over again is that the healthier spouse, because they feel so committed, will take on way too much, and they'll decline faster and often pass sooner. And so their whole point of trying to be there for the other spouse backfires on them because they pass. So when it starts taking its health, you're seeing a health impact, you're seeing a mental impact. I've seen, kids where they just are very short and not necessarily kind at all times to their parents because it's just taking its toll.
It's exhausting.
Then it's time. Give the reins over to someone who's experienced in it, someone that has shifts so they can have a break, because you're no good to your parent if you are not in a very healthy or mentally stable state.
Let me
And
add
we want
to
to
that.
protect the relationship.
Yes.
Well, and the person falls. I mean, for her mom basically was a 4'10" fire plug that if she fell, there was no way in the world she could help her up. But let's change this, and this is where your expertise will even come in more. And to answer your question, you have a parent that's declining in that Alzheimer, dementia type real. The longer you wait to get that parent into a situation where the care facility knows how to stimulate, how to keep involved, it can slow the process down, where anybody who's a layman caregiver, if you will, a family member or something, and you're just basically feeding them and letting them be in the house, person's going to decline a lot faster, lose their self-respect and dignity a lot faster than some of the services that are available inside the facilities that are amazing. Could you touch on that? What do they, talk about some of that.
Well, I believe that's true, and it kind of falls back in saying that when you realize what you're giving is not the best that your parent can receive, that's when you need to make a change. Because Rich is right, when you are merely feeding somebody, making their meals, cleaning, and just worry, you're in survival mode. you're not providing them the mental stimulation, the activity and social needs that they also have. You're not going to be feeding for. You're not going to be taking care of those.
The medical appointments that you have to take somebody to versus the medical that's provided right in the facility with doctors that your doctors that work with them.
So at the end of the day, it's really when you cannot provide for them in the best manner, it's time to pass the baton.
So if people want to dive deeper on this and see what options they have individually, how do they get a hold of Klaus Team Silver?
So they can reach me directly at 480-370-3777. I do have the connections and the guidance that people will need to actually hit all of these points that we discussed today.
And for zero money.
Yeah, it's a free
your
concierge.
service, your service
it's a free
is free,
concierge service. I might as well use my years of experience in senior living to help those. I've lived it personally, and I've lived it through my professional career, and so I know the pitfalls. I know what families need at that time. So I'm here.
Well, thank you so much. You guys are great.
Thank you.
Thanks for spending time with us this week at State 48 Homeowner, the ins and outs of owning an Arizona home. You can connect with us for more information, submit topics you'd like us to further discuss. You can see relevant videos, give us feedback, answer your real estate questions, and more at state48homeowner.com.